Good evening. Welcome to Vedanta Society of New Jersey's Spiritual Retreat with Swami Sarvapriyananda. Thank you all for joining us here this evening. Tonight, our president, Mr. Ranjit Das, could not be here because of a business schedule conflict. I will be filling up his role and conduct the proceedings for the next 3 days. I am Krishnendu Bose. Before I go into introducing Swami Sarvapriyananda, I would like to thank all our sponsors on behalf of Vedanta Society of New Jersey. Arpita Lahiri for sponsoring Swamiji's dinner tonight, Kiran and Kirti Doshi for sponsoring Friday's dinner for all, Ranjit and Shivali Das for sponsoring Saturday lunch for all, and we have an anonymous sponsor for Sunday's lunch. Thank you all for your support. I would also like to thank Indian Cultural Center for allowing us to hold the spiritual retreat here and providing all the support. You all heard about Swami Sarvapriyananda, and I'm sure that's why you all are here to have this experience with him directly. Swami Sarvapriyananda has been the minister and spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society of New York since January of 2017. He joined the Ramakrishna Mission Mont in 1994 and received sannyasa in 2004. He served as an acharya, a teacher, to the Monastic Probationers Training Center at Belmont, India. He also served in various capacities in different educational institutes of the Ramakrishna Mission in India, and as the Assistant Minister of the Vedanta Society of Southern California. During 2019 and 2020, he was Negral Fellow at the Harvard Divinity School. Swami Sarvapriyananda is a very well-known speaker on Vedanta, and his talks are extremely popular globally via internet. He spoke at the World Parliament of Religion in Toronto in 2018 and at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Swami Sarvapriyananda is a very strong proponent and scholar of the Indian Upanishad school of thoughts and the philosophy of self and consciousness contained in them. He has delivered many lectures on the same topic. Fortune India mentions Swami Sarvapriyananda as one of the best-known lecturers of the Vedanta in the world today. We all are very fortunate to have him with us for the next 3 days. In this spiritual retreat, he will talk about Atmajana, or self-consciousness. Before I welcome Swamiji, I will have a humble request. Please turn off your cell phones or put it on mute until we are done with our session for this evening. We definitely need our best attention. So let me welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda ji. Namaskar, Shanaji. Now we have a performance by Vedanta School. We have Ashika Mukherjee, Alia Ganguly, Adhira Mukherjee, Elena Ray, Elena Chanda, Mishika Ghosh.
madhvatarikayate madhuksharanti sindhavah madhvina santoshadihi madhunakta madhoshasi madhumapati vagum rajah madhudurastuna pita madhumano vanaspati madhumagum mastu suryah madhvegavo bhavantunah asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya tejosi tejomai dehi viryamasi viryamai dehi balamasi balamai dehi ojo mai dehi manyarasi manyarmai dehi sahosi saho mai dehi om shanti 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 hari om nayananandanam chitadarpanam malanabaranam tapta jivanam suratumanase me palam palam charana pankajam sharadeshwari kalita kamana kalamudajam kabalitasya me dinabhisham bhuvi valargavam mati pushtishu shapai sharade matareshwari jagatnamahe manavamuda gurudha kirtanam bhakti vardhanam namata mataram muktidam pradhan bhajit sharadan bhavarupini tvameva kali gamala tvameva tvameva tara tripura tvameva tvameva bala bagala tvameva tvameva mata bhuvaneshwari namami sharadam devim dhanvanitam niranjani yogindara sadhya veda vidya pradayani vivadishvim vinayasya brahmatattvam bhuvasvidam kalpatena prakashaya tasai namo namah. Today we will be singing This Little Light of Mine. All of us have a little light in our hearts, and all of our family and all of our friends and everyone around the world has a little light too, and it's really fun to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine.
Thank you, girls. Now I will request Margaret. Now I will request Margaret to start his lecture.
It's much better. I'd like to see my audience. Special effects was nice, but for a talk, it's a little better to look at each other and discussing something, especially something so serious. All right, let me start with a peace chant. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace. Good evening and namaskar everybody. Thanks especially due to Parvati and her team, which has put together this program. Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak about my favorite subject, of course. Somebody said, when I give talks there at the Vedanta Society in New York, somebody said it's the same lecture every time. It's true. Basically, it's the same message from the Upanishads, the message of self-knowledge, the message of Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. It's liberating knowledge of the Upanishads. But luckily, there are many, many different sources. So you get the same message, but in different ways. Thanks also to the kids of the Vedanta school here who chanted and sang so beautifully. So what we're going to do in these sessions, one session now, then two tomorrow, and one more on Sunday morning, is explore self-knowledge. Self-knowledge according to the Upanishads, according to Vedanta. The way I was thinking of structuring this is that I'll speak for some time, maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour, and the remaining time, we can have Q&A. If a microphone can be given somewhere there, people can come up and ask questions. It's important to have this question-answer session. Because Vedanta is not so much about believing something, it's more about understanding and realizing. So, self-knowledge, Vedanta, Upanishads have thrown out these terms. What do they mean? The Upanishads are the spiritual and philosophical teachings which are found in the Vedas. So the root texts of Hinduism, the Vedas, and Hinduism is a vast literature, but the Vedas are the root texts, the most ancient sources of Hinduism. And in the Vedas, you find scattered these texts called the Upanishads. And these Upanishads contain the highest, final, most deep, most profound teachings of the Vedas. That's why these Upanishads are called Vedanta. Anta literally meaning the end. End not so much in the sense of the end of the book, but in the sense of end, the highest teachings, the final teachings. Anta in the Sanskrit sense of Siddhanta, the final teachings. Of course, these Upanishads themselves have become the focus of multiple layers of commentaries and sub-commentaries, and multiple traditions in Hinduism have emerged from these Upanishads. So Vedanta itself is vast, has many, many schools. There is the Advaita Vedanta, closely associated with the name of Adi Shankaracharya. There is Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, where Ramanujacharya is the commentator. There is Dvaita Vedanta, where Madhvacharya is the commentator. There is Shuddhadvaita Vedanta of Vallabhacharya, Dvaitadvaita Vedanta of Nimbarkacharya. The the Achintya Bheda school of Vedanta, which is traced back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and so on. So multiple schools of Vedanta are there. But what I propose to focus on, my favorite school, the sort of our central tradition in the Ramakrishna mission, in the Vedanta society, is Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta. So that's where the self-knowledge thing is coming from. Before I forget, there's a vast literature, and some of that literature has come to you thanks to our dear Shibuda. Raise your hand. They're sitting right there. He's come all the way from Washington, D.C., and he's got all those wonderful books back there. Do take a look at some time. And he has carefully selected books which are relevant to this retreat, to self-knowledge, to Advaita Vedanta. Spirituality can be understood in different paradigms. There are different ways of being spiritual. I have sometimes defined Hinduism as a full spectrum religion. You have all kinds of beliefs, practices, rituals, mythology, texts, traditions within this vast ocean of Hinduism. So you have all these different ways of being spiritual. One way, which is one paradigm, is what one might call the bhakti paradigm, the devotional paradigm of being spiritual. They're all true, all are good ways, but they're different. It's good to know the differences. See, the way of self-knowledge which we will talk about is not so well known. When we're coming here from the station, driving down here the freeway, I was thinking, it's sort of strange that the direct road, the royal highway, the freeway which comes from the Upanishads, has somehow been a little neglected, a little forgotten. Bypass has become more popular. There are other roads which have developed over time and which take you to the same goal, but they have become more popular. In these other roads, the bypass, over time, it's been nicely decorated. There are more exits, there are more, gas stations and McDonald's and restrooms and so on, and it's much more frequented. And the original road which you find in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, and the direct path, sort of neglected. Not many people go down that road. But let's take a look at that in these 3 days. It's an amazing thing. It's quite so extraordinary. To bring out how extraordinary it is, the subject of today's and this discussion. The 3 paradigms I'll put forward before us today, the 3 paradigms in spiritual life, 3 ways of being spiritual. One is the bhakti way. What does the bhakti way say? It is that there is a God, and how do we know that? Scriptures tell us, wise and holy people tell us, our tradition tells us. And you have to have faith in God, and you have to have love and devotion and surrender to God. And that will take you to the goal of spirituality. By the way, if you ask what is the goal of spirituality, these things were well defined and understood in ancient India. The goal is dukkha nivritti, overcoming suffering. It is nothing more than everybody's goal. If you put it in traditional language, freedom from the cycle of birth and death, dhamma mrityu chakra, the cycle of birth and death, freedom from that. That's the language used in many texts, in many traditions, not just Hinduism. In your nice little library here, I came across an ancient text of Jainism, Tattvartha Sutra, written about 1800 years ago. There also, what is the goal of Jainism? Is to go beyond the cycle of birth and death. So Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism also, they all believe in the cycle of birth and death. But that sounds rather heavy, rather pompous, or it already assumes that we believe in a cycle of birth and death. Somebody told me that this is something that's very common to Indian traditions. Am I audible or is it?
Oh, yeah.
It's not it. The Oya was like a bit too much audible. Is it too loud?
No.
That's okay. Somebody told me when I came to this country that this cycle of birth and death, many births, many deaths, which we Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, from India we believe in, this is not so, it's not acceptable or not understood here in the West. So the goal of spirituality, instead of being put in that way, you can put it in a way which is acceptable to everybody, which is easily understood. Overcoming suffering. And that was the greatness of the Buddha. You see, we all study in school Buddhism, 4 Noble Truths. Used to get questioned, 4 Noble Truths, 2 marks. There is sorrow, dukkha. There is a cause of sorrow, which is the tanha, trishna, desire. There is a liberation from sorrow, which is nirvana. And there is a method for liberation from sorrow. That is the Noble Eightfold Way, Ashtanga Marga. You would get 2 more marks if you remembered all the Eightfold Ways. So, that is so logical. Swami Vivekananda said, Buddha was the sanest man who ever lived. No cobwebs in that way. Very analytic, very logical. One of the ancient texts says, Chikitsakanam iva, like a doctor. There is a disease, but what's the symptom? That's one, suffering is the disease. Is there a cause of that disease or not? If there is a cause, yes, there is a cause. The cause of the disease, it is desire, Krishna. Is there a cure or is it incurable? It is curable. There is a cure for that disease. That is nirvana, freedom from suffering. And is there a treatment available? Yes. The treatment is the Eightfold Way. So chikitsakanam eva, just like a doctor is prescribed. So this is the basic idea about spiritual life. We are trying to overcome suffering, whether by worldly means or by spiritual means. And spiritual means, every religion promises freedom from suffering in some way. How they define that freedom, that differs from religion to religion. What is the method for freedom from suffering, that differs from religion to religion. But basic project is the same. Now, one of these ways of becoming free from suffering is the bhakti way. That there is God, you believe in God, practice devotion, and your freedom from suffering will be given by God. God will take care of it. And this is the most popular form of religion and spirituality that we find. Whether it is in temples, churches, mosques, synagogues, wherever, you find God, worship of God in some form. In fact, religion itself. Look at the term, faith. In America, you use the term faith. Faith is belief. Belief in what? Belief in God. That's one way of being religious. And that's the way that most people, especially here in the West, they know this. Until the coming of Buddhism, many people didn't know that another way of being religious, spiritual was possible. So, there is a second way of being spiritual, which is the way of meditation, yogic way. Here, the method is not that you have to believe in something. Rather, the yogi, Patanjali, for example, the Yoga Sutras, tells you that it's not a question of belief, it's a question of experience. You will actually experience these truths for you. See how Narendranath became Vivekananda, we know the story. He went around asking people in late 19th century Calcutta, have you seen God? Not does God exist, not do you believe in God, or why should I believe in God? Have you seen God? What a very, very empirical question. A question about empirical data, about experience. So the yogic approach is an approach of experience. What experience? Extraordinary experience, supersensuous experience, or mystic experience, samadhi. And as Vivekananda says, if God exists, I should be able to see God. If I have an immortal soul, I should be able to feel it, that I have an immortal soul. And then, of course, he found Sarvapriyananda, who directly said to him, yes, I have seen God, and so can you. So that is the path of meditation. Patanjali Yoga will tell you that it's not a question of believing in something or depending on God. Rather, calm down the restlessness of the mind. I will show you how to sit, how to breathe, how to focus, and how to withdraw from external stimuli. And then in the depths of your own mind, you will realize the existence of this soul, Atman, or the existence of God, Ishvara, Bhagavan. That is the mystic way, yogic way. One classic form of that is the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. But that's not the only one. There are many practices in Buddhism, in Jainism, which promise that, the mystic way. In Hinduism, the Tantric way. And many kinds of meditation. The goal is to actually have an experience of God. What experience? Mystical experience, special experience. Now, both of these ways have some problems, some disadvantages. The disadvantage of the devotional way, bhakti way, is that it depends on faith. You cannot start a devotional practice by being skeptical. You can't start with Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and say that I will practice devotion to God. You can't start with atheism. You can't even start with agnosticism. You have to start with some kind of faith. The path of bhakti requires belief. And there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people have belief. But then again, in this day and age, a lot of people do not have belief. Or they find it difficult to believe in such things. That the God exists, heaven exists and all of this. There are many reasons why people become agnostic, skeptical, even atheistic. So the path of devotion, path of belief in God, faith, that has some disadvantage. Not for everybody. Then the path of experience appeals to such people. That, I can actually experience God. I experience the world in a special way, some mystical experience I can get about God. Alright, that seems great. But even that has a little bit of a problem there. The problem is this. If you say I'm experiencing, Sri Ramakrishna often used to have samadhi and experience and a vision of Mahakali. But if you read the accounts, you will notice one thing. He is experiencing, he is seeing Mahakali, but nobody else is seeing Mahakali. They all feel uplifted, they all feel sublime, but they are not seeing Mahakali. They are not having a vision of God. So there's the problem of mystical experience, that it is not shared. It's not a public thing. Only the mystic has it. And the promise is, of course, you can see it. Vivekananda himself says that if somebody says, I have seen God, but you cannot, you have to believe in what I say, reject him. But if somebody says that I have seen God, and so you can too, and these are the practices how you can do it, then you can accept that person as a teacher. So the mystic promises that if you practice those things, one day you will get that experience. That's good. But because it's not a shared experience, because it's not a public experience, you are seeing this hall, I am seeing this hall, we all have no problem. If I say there's a bottle of water on the table, you all agree. Why? Because we share the same instruments of knowledge. I see it, you see it also. Yes. But if I say I'm seeing God here, you may say, good for you. Some of you, the more credulous type, you come and bow down to me. Please ask God to bless us. We can't see God. Others might have doubts, questions. But it's not shared. We don't immediately agree to that. A neuroscientist would say today that we don't doubt that you are having a mystical experience or you feel one with the universe, but it's not because you are one with the universe or you're seeing God, it's because you have a little stroke in the right hemisphere. There's some reading there. There was this very popular, most popular TED talk. When a lady, she's a neuroscientist, she got a stroke. And because she's trained, she recognized that she was having a stroke. But she also had simultaneously a quote-unquote mystical experience, feeling of oneness, personal boundaries dissolving, feeling of oneness with the environment. So neuroscientists might say that. Or today, if you're in Manhattan, much more likely answer for that is not mystical experience or even stroke, it's weed. It was legalized 1 year or 2 years back. So around this time, 6:30 years, you find many people having mystical experience. So that is one. There's the problem with that. In fact, why go so far? Mystics, those who have spiritual experiences, whether in Hinduism or in any religion, there are Christian mystics, Islamic mystics. What is the usual reaction of society to such people? They'll say, first of all, they'll say you're crazy, you're mad. Sri Ramakrishna, he was literally known as the Pallava, the mad Brahmin of Dakshineshwar. He's always having these visions of God. In contrast to these two paths, the bhakti path and the yogic path, by yoga here I mean Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga, the path of meditation. There is a third path which we are going to talk about. So all this I am talking about is not our subject. Our subject is the third path. I want to distinguish it from the other paths. This path of self-knowledge. This path of self-knowledge says, not believing in something, not even mystical experiences, rather investigating into your own existence, into what you are right now, using logic and experience. What experience? Not mystical experience, common day-to-day experience. Like everybody experiences waking, dreaming, deep sleep. That's enough. A shared experience. That's enough to lead us to enlightenment. Everybody has experience of subject and object. You feel you are the subject and the world is whatever you're experiencing is object. Seer and the seen. That's enough. We will see how that is enough to lead us to enlightenment. So this third path, the path of Advaita Vedanta, the path of self-knowledge, self-realization, it is unique. It does not depend on belief. It does not depend on certain extraordinary experiences. So nobody can accuse you of being high on something or suffering from a stroke or mania. No. In fact, Vivekananda, when he met Sri Ramakrishna, he said, I was very impressed by him, but I felt he was a maniac, monomaniac. Always God, he's going on. And Sri Ramakrishna himself admitted. But he said, humorously, people in the world are mad after the word. I am mad about God. So that's the difference. So this is the path of self-knowledge. Let me put it in another way. One sadhu put it very simply. What I am trying to say, put it very simply. He said in Hindi, and I translate it in Bengali for you. Do hi raste hain Mahatma ji. Do hi raste hain. There are only two paths. Jano ya mano. Either you know it or you believe it. These are the two paths. The path of believing it is basically the mainstream religion. It's based on belief. You may be the most believing person on earth, but even the most faithful, devoted person on earth will get a rude shock when your own teenage son or daughter says, I'm not interested. That's just not cool, mom. So many of you have that experience. You're devotional. But you all, I get so many special parents, especially moms. Moms are more worried. The son or the daughter are both not interested in religion. So that's a devotional path. That's a path of belief. It is also not jhana is also not the path of trying to have some separate, unique experiences which can be question mark and then. No. Jhana is to know, to get knowledge directly. And mano means the path of, in Hindi, mano means to accept it, to have faith. Mene newa in Bengali. Vishwa. Both will work. Sri Ramakrishna gave great emphasis on Vishwa. Vishwa Shikhi, he said. Faith is, if you have it, good for you. It's a blessing. But suppose you don't have, there is also this path. And I have seen often people come questioning, inquiring, not so much faith in traditional religion, but after listening to Vedanta, after studying, beginning to understand, they get faith. They begin to understand and they begin to believe also. So that also happens. Another way of understanding religion is this. There are these two broad categories of religion. I might characterize them as God-centered, and I won't say self-centered, that sounds bad. Self-inquiry based religions. God-seeking religions and self-inquiry. Even self-seeking sounds bad. So self-inquiry based religions. God-centered religions, the technical name for that would be theistic religions, those which believe in the existence of God. So right now we are here, for Thakur Ramakrishna Dev here. We believe, at least some of us believe that he is an incarnation of God. Most of us who are Hindus will believe in God in the multiple forms in which we worship in Hinduism, as Durga, Kali, Shiva.